in a warm, big, open-hearted family, and my mother is a healer, and she brought us up on a very busy lifestyle and eating fruits and vegetables, and we were kept a lot busy. So we went through jazz, ballet, tap, singing music, we went to the pools, we were kept very busy, and it was great. It was a good, warm upbringing. I guess I got to know how that felt, so that was good. Yeah, and my grandfather was a juggler as well, so we actually went and saw him at circus in Tempe, and we used to see his shows going, so that was good. So we were brought up pretty free-spirited. Then my teen years came, and I had rebelled and found my friends drinking and experimenting and all those sort of things, and I was out there doing all that. I had 3 jobs, so a really crazy, busy, hectic lifestyle, you know, compared to what that was. So I did fall sick. I felt very sick. One day I ended up making it to a train station, and an elderly couple had called an ambulance on me. So I ended up in the hospital when they took my bloods, and they discovered that I looked like I had leukemia. So they wanted me to have a bone marrow test to see if that was the case, and thankfully it wasn't, so it was negative. Then another doctor discovered that my spleen had enlarged, so he wanted to take it out, but my bloods were all over the shop, and so I had to go in and out of hospital every day for 8 hours a day and doing blood transfusions, and that sort of rebuilt my blood so I could have the operation. They did take my spleen out, so we went through that operation. Then after that, when I could, I was a little bit angry and I wanted my spleen back. So I was going on this journey, and to counterbalance that angriness, I used to get up and go for big walks, and I'd get rid of that, come home, do these stretches, and then I would lay flat on my back where I would visualize my spleen actually being there. So I would visualize myself, the blood going through the spleen and actually working for itself. And I thought, it's going to work for that hour, and then I can continue my day. Yeah, it was like a transition of when I woke up to when I left the house. I felt amazing, like every day. I just made myself feel amazing. I didn't want to get sick again, and that's like the sort of, I wanted to go back to how I felt before I fell sick. As soon as I could, the doctor said I could work on a certain day. I got a job in the city as a hairdresser, and I was there for 7 years, and it was a really chaotic lifestyle. Even though I was going out and doing champagne dinners and fashion forward shows and everything, when I came home I'd always have like a shower and a broth, and I'd wake up, doing my walk, realigning myself and meditating. No one taught me this. It was just something that I knew, that I worked out, that worked. And then I'd have all this energy to do all this stuff. And so I excelled in the city, and I did all this crazy work that you would never imagine. But then after working in the city for 7 years, I started a hair salon on Enmore Road, just up the road here, and I was there for 19 years. When I moved to Newtown, the lifestyle was a lot better. It was a little bit slower, not as fast as the city, still fast, but not as fast. And we could eat like warm, sort of healthy dishes out here, right? And that was really good, because it used to just be really fast food and all that sort of thing in the city. So that kept my health going, and I discovered yoga, a yoga beginner class, and I didn't know, like I knew yoga was an aerobic class that stretched, but I was doing these things at home, so I found it quite like, wow, you know, yoga it makes you go in, you sort of do what I'm doing at home, and I was like, wow, I could teach this, and it was, you know, fantastic to find about all this. I was only about 22, 23. So I continued doing the yoga course and continued going to classes and joining up memberships. I also went to a lot of yoga retreats. One changed everything for me at an Ayurvedic yoga retreat. But there was this other retreat I went to in Bali. It was a water fast. It was ran by Lynn Nichols and Don Tallman. So I don't know if anyone knows Don Tallman, but yeah, he's got his own way of thinking, very similar, a little bit similar to Ayurveda, but he's never been taught it and it's all his own work. And he sort of thought of when animals get sick, they don't eat much and they rebuild themselves through nature. So I went on this water fast, but I did 10 days in Sydney, met up with Don Tallman in Les Waterfalls and did 8 days with him and got rid of parasites, laid in the waterfalls, the Les Waterfall every day. We're absorbing the cosmos of the nature. We're talking about what his philosophy is on in like reincarnation through flowers and birds and everything, and he can see this certain way of life. I also went to a shaman in the mountains and met some breatharians from Sweden. We were hanging out doing all this work and it was very intense, but I got through it. Yeah, so they say in Ayurveda there's a similar thing, panchakarmas, detoxes for us, but they consider a little bit more on the body type, which I found fascinating because they didn't have any structure. They just told everyone what to eat. Whereas in Ayurveda, it's interesting, they recommend only Vadas to have 3 or 4 days of detoxing with small bowls of khichdi and detox drinks to keep them going. Because if they did water fasts, it would agitate their dosha a lot more because of the space and air in their body. I'll go a bit more into that in the next section of our talk. But yeah, and the pitta can detox once a week on soups and juices and little bowls of khichdi, but they shouldn't really do long stretches of detoxing because they get agitated if they miss one meal. So it's very difficult for them to do a long detox, but you can do it with soups and juices and little detox drinks and khichdi. And then the kapha, you can detox, you can do water fasts, you can not eat for days, and it's fine because you're getting rid of kapha, creates a lot of armor, and yeah, you're doing that, and so you're doing the work. So that was good to know because I'd done that, so I didn't do any sort of damage myself, and I felt good at it. So I felt good doing the water fast. I felt lighter, I felt brighter, so that was good. Yeah, the Ayurveda retreat changed everything for me. I wanted to know more. It was 7 days of talking intense about Ayurveda, so that's how I came up with studying Ayurveda as well. But also, after doing all this, I've been doing Vipassana. So Vipassana is, it means the way it is. Like you see everything the way it is. It's a 10-day course. It's a silence retreat, and you eat breakfast and lunch and you don't eat dinner. There's about 100 people that sit, and we meditate for 14 hours, 114 hours the whole 10 days. It's a lot of meditation in one 10-day sit. It's about 12 hours a day of meditation. So it's quite strong. S.N. Goenka started Vipassana back in 1974. He was brought up in Burma with migraines and in a really wealthy family, business family. So he suffered from migraines as a child, and his parents were like, you know, going to the doctors, throwing money at the doctor, get rid of my child's migraines. That's going to get rid of it. So, you know, he found his friends. He liked hanging out with his friends that didn't have much. They would sit on the grounds, eating small amounts of food, enjoying themselves, because it was just the way it is. Like, he was just comfortable and happy, and the way it was. When he went home, it was about, if the family didn't find a lot of money, there was a lot of stress, there was a lot of angst. So So SNS Gunko, he went inwards, and his own intuition, he found that money wasn't the answer, and money caused the suffering. So he went on his journey, and he discovered Vipassana in 1955, and then took it to the next level, where he decided, because he's from wealth, that he could, start teaching everyone this. So he started his first Vipassana, and now it's around the world. There's centres all over the world. There's 2 in New South Wales. I sit at the one in the Blue Mountains at Clarke. So Vipassana is a technique that Sattva Gaudaman, the Buddha of our time, almost didn't teach. So it's quite this moment in our time that thankfully it happened. The Buddha, he was from wealth as well, and he saw people suffering, and he wanted to work it all out. He wanted to strive and become freedom. So when he was 25, he sat, and I'm so happy and proud to say this, he sat in a conscious meditation technique from Ayurveda. Ayurveda teaches these techniques of meditation 5,000 years ago. And he sat in Anapana from the age of 29 to 35. And all it is, it's a strong technique. You're focusing on the nostrils and the top of the lip, and you're inhaling and exhaling, and you're focusing on that one spot the whole time. It's quite an intense meditation, Anapana. So he used that to get through to enlightenment. Then he was thinking about not wanting to teach, because what he went through, he couldn't understand how everyone else was going to understand what he went through to get to where he was. Then he came up with Vipassana. It was a sequence. Vipassana is a sequence. You can't really go on a weekend and learn it. You can't just, I can't talk for an hour and you're going to know what it is. You get taught it over 10 days, because it's an actual a lot smaller version of what is originally taught. So the 10 days, the first 3 days we do Anapana. So this sharpens the mind. It makes it very, very sharp. We stop thinking and we just think of the inhale, exhale, the breath. And you start to feel everything in that area. The high sensations, subtle sensations, any gross sensations. It's like this focus. So it trains the brain. In layman's terms, there's veins in our brain, right? And throughout our life, we get exposed to things. There might be traumatizing. There might be things that we go through as a child or a teenager or whenever, adults. So these veins in our brains, they grow and they get stronger, and they're overpowering your thoughts. It's like negative, responding trauma all the time, and the veins get stronger and longer. When you sit in Anapana for 12 hours a day, you're not focusing on this muscle anymore. So it's like someone going to the gym for 20 years and all of a sudden stopping. The muscles become weak. So in these 3 days, when you're focusing on the breath and nothing else, these veins, they get weak. And you sharpen the mind so straight, like so focused. Not only that happens, after the 3rd day of Anapana, I always find this amazing thing that happens. Because you're so focused, you can see everything the way it is. I leave the temple and I look back, closing the door. I always do it on the 3rd day, leaving at the end of Anapana. As I see myself closing the door, I can see what we're doing out in nature, like the wind comes off the door and then I'll step and I can see the grains of the dirt just moving away from my foot. I can see the leaves like waving, like individually, seeing everything clearly, like nothing. And these sort of thoughts go through your mind, wow, it's so beautiful. Like the air, the fresh air, the birds, the clouds, it's just so beautiful. And I think what happens is, because you don't have any of these other thoughts going on, your positive veins start to like come out. And you've got the rest of the 10 days to think similar versions like this, and there's so many different things that happen. Those negative sort of veins sort of disappear, and then the more stronger visualizing all this beauty in the world and seeing it like as though you've seen it for the first time is just so profound. And it's such a strong technique because you're not responding in a traumatized response anymore. You're responding to how it is. So like if something's happened and you're kind of, you know, always doing these things in life, and then all of a sudden it's gone. You know, these things can come back over time, but if you do have a practice ongoing, you can keep it going quite strongly. So that's what Anapana does. And yeah, the Buddha used that to get to enlightenment. He wasn't born Buddha, he did it, he strived for it, and he did that. It's hard work, it's not easy. Yeah. So day 4, we go through the body. There's a different meditation. We scan part by part, and we're going from head down to feet. And we're going part by part. And when we're doing this technique, my first Vipassana experience, I had all these emotions pop up. Firstly, I'm very creative, so they came up in my mind as flashcards. So they were like days of the week of work, and then household, and then what this person said, what that person said, and all these things. But because you're in an anapana sort of state, you're not responding like I used to, so you're just sort of flowing through it, you know, until you get to one that, you know, nudges you, and then you go, but that happened to me, and you know, you get there and you cry and you're at it, and then it kind of it dissolves eventually because, you know, you're going through, and it's just another flashcard, it's just another moment in your life. And they kind of came at me, even music, like songs, it was so annoying because it'd be like a silly song in my head all day instead of so you try to like tap it out and you try to get rid of it, and because you're by yourself in your house, and you know, yeah, you can hear this stuff and it gets louder, and then you know, that meditation quietens it, and then it comes back again. And then you go through your teen years and into childhood, and it's a very interesting journey to see all that. It's just really fast, really strong memories that come up, and ones that kind of nudge you a little bit, sort of hang in there a bit. So that's when we're going down this technique. You do this for 12 hours. So you're kind of meeting yourself for the first time. Kind of go into this psychedelic state. You start to sort of feel a little bit less embodied, and you start to feel a little bit out of, like, even though you're doing this technique physically, you start to get into this other world. I've spoken to other people that have done things like ayahuasca and these sort of things, and they mention the same sort of, they meet themselves for the first time. It's quite strong, you know, and Vipassana kind of does a similar thing. I've never taken ayahuasca, but it's kind of like they go on this psychedelic journey and meet themselves for the first time, and this is exactly what this meditation does. Day 5, you kind of start to go those parts down, but coming back up. And this, you start to switch a gear in your body, because you've been telling yourself you want to open your legs and move and whatever. So a certain boredom starts to kick in as well, and you're in pain. and you're going through these parts, and when you're going back up, it makes you sit longer. So it's pushing you. He knew exactly the techniques to put in what order. And that pushes you to sit there for the hour. The aim is to sit for the hour without moving. So when you go down and come back up, these flashcards, they start to rev up. Your body starts to get a little hotter. I noticed all these sort of transitions. Day is at 6, we start to free flow. So we go around the body and we learn this technique. And it comes in a good time because you just want to, and the free flow moves everything around. And you start to get faster and you're moving everything around. What it does though, it peels back layers of yourself. So each one you go around, you think, oh, that's such a relief and it's a nice sensation. Then the more pain comes underneath because it's like you're peeling off another skin. And then they get deeper and deeper, so you get into this like core of your suffering. It's really, really interesting to go through. And then we learn day 8, day 7 we start, we're doing the free flow, but we're concentrating on the gross sensations. So that's a little bit of relief at the same time, because then you can concentrate on the gross sensations for a minute and then do free flow. And what that does is you're putting space into the gross sensations so you can sit there longer in it. And then day 8, we do the same thing with the, we're doing the free flow, but then Grinka wants us to concentrate on the numb areas. And this is a really tough one because you don't know they're there until you actually find that there's no sensation. And then they're there and you're like, well, it's numb, it's not circulation loss, it's numb. And then when you're concentrating on these spots, they become like pins and needles. And it's really interesting because then you know that that has been numb for a very long time. And they're patches in your body, and you like these pins and needles come and they start to ache and crack, and like you start to feel what's there, and it starts to like want to soften up, and you can tell that that's happening for you. Then day 9, we start penetration, which is the operation. So we find these numb areas or gross areas, and I think we tackle the gross ones first because we just want them gone because they hurt. So we start penetrating and going through the gross sensations. And what that means is we're visualizing, penetrating into our skin. We're actually doing operations. You can start to see your organs, your brain, the way your spine is. You can go right in. One time I was accidentally, I think, in a vein because I was like moving around like water and I was having fun with it, so I just stayed in it for a bit and I realised I was in like archery or something because it was quite fluid. But with the penetration, what you're doing is you're going through sankaras, they call it in the Ayurveda, and that is like sensations, feelings of how we react to things. And they're stored in our body. And when this happens, we're doing this Vipassana and then we're penetrating. You go into this other channel. It's like, it's taking you right into that one little tiny baby cell. All your focus is so sharp after all the work you've put in. You focus on this one cell and then it's like, bang, you're there. You hear the music of the day, the smell, the people that cause that pain as you would see it, going through something. It could be something simple, it could be something very dramatic, and you're there and you have no idea like that you're in the temple at the time. You just go there and you're living it again. But you rationalize with it because you're in such a state of bliss You don't respond as a trauma victimizing thought. You respond in love, forgiveness. It's the only way you can do that. What happens is, when we get to that point, it explodes inside you. I know that sounds strange. When you get to that point, it explodes. It literally falls into pieces, and you can feel it, and it runs through the body, and you can feel it vibrating through your body, and you're shaking up, and it's almost like you have an exorcism. You're like, whoa, what's all this stuff? And it's actually euphoric. It's such a relief that's gone. The forgiving, the love, the everything about what it was is gone. And you don't respond in that way ever again. I tell you, after each sit, I come out, dealing with different sankharas, and you just kind of come out and just, it's fascinating, it's amazing. I'll explain it through an actual story that I went through. So one of my sits, it wasn't my first, it might have been my third or fourth or something, and I was enraged. I was driving up to the Vipassana Centre going, I can't wait to sit. I was in my head, it's because of my partner I didn't get to do this, it's because of them I didn't get to do that, and it's because of them, like all this rage, right, going in my mind. And I did my Anapana for 3-4 days, totally forgotten about the situations, and then I see the vision of my partner, my ex-partner at the time, and I wasn't angry. I saw this warmth, and I saw her as she was, not how I wanted her to be, how she was. And I was crying. I cried for days over this because of her upbringing. The things that I needed her to do were just, she wasn't taught, she didn't have a role model to show her how to be that way or to do what I wanted. So I saw this all in one glimpse. It's hard to describe, it was just in 1 second. But it came to me in one feeling of warmth and love in a different way, like as though her mother see her or source would see her. I felt sorry for her. And then I continued my sit. And then at the end, the first thing I did was called her and apologized to her because I'd said some horrible things. And also said, I'm so sorry that you had gone through that in your upbringing, and that's why you can't do the things that you actually want to do, which is awful, and she cried, and she said, I'm the only person on the planet that gets her, and we both at that moment knew we were over. But the whole thing is that I went through this situation leaving with an open heart for her and forgiveness. If I didn't do that sit or go through that, I'd be for all my life saying, no, it's her fault, didn't have a child with her for 10 years, all this stuff going through my head. It's nonsense. It's just who she was, who I was, and we were together, that's what happened. So, and that all comes down to the experience. There's lots of stories that you go through when you go through Vipassana that this happens. Yeah. So on day 10's metta. Metta, we give out the love, and it's beautiful. We give out the warmth to people. Sometimes there's people in your life that you feel like they shouldn't have the metta. Sometimes. But they're the ones that need it the most. So if you see this person and you think, nah, they, whatever, how are they ever going to heal and become nicer to you? So when we give the metta to people that need it the most, so if someone's really loud at you or something and ruined your day, then you kind of go, and you don't want to give the metta. They're the ones that need the most, because if they actually had a warmth in them and a better feeling in them, they wouldn't be the way they are, being angry or something at you. So when we give the metta to everyone deserves it, especially the ones that you think that don't. They're the ones that we should be giving metta to the most. There's a story I'd like to say. I was in America on this journey, and it was in the middle of the night, and I was out and I'm walking along the street. I can't remember why, but I'd separated from my friends, and this guy runs up to me, coloured guy, it doesn't matter. He ran up to me and he was shaking and he said, "My sister's in an accident. Please, can you help? I need to send her an ambulance. My sister's in an accident." I'm like, "Oh my God, where is she? Let me help you. I know a few things." And he's like, "Oh, no, you don't understand. I just need to get into an ambulance because I don't have insurance." And I was like, "Oh, that's fine. Here's some money." And I gave him $50. And he just looked up at me like I was like, well, he looked up at me and said, "Ma'am, where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Sydney, Australia." And he said, "Oh, wow." And he just held me like he'd never held anyone before. And he was shaking and he was sweating. I could smell his alcohol and cigarettes. And then I realized what was happening. I was just being me. But he dropped a knife and he wanted to rob me. So he ran off after he hugged me. And I went back to the room where my friends were. I must have been going out to the convenience store or something. And then I told them what happened. And because my friends are from there, they said, "How much did you give him, $2? I'm like, "No, 50. And they said, "Oh my goodness, that's more than his weekly vouchers." And I said, "Yeah, but he needed an ambulance." And the story though is that I gave him metta and I saw warmth in him that he probably had never felt. So I don't regret at all doing that. I can go back home and make $50. It changed his life. Well, it would have. And like my friend said, that would have been really big. So things like that, I could have seen it in a different way, not given him anything, and then we would have had a very interesting night. But that was beautiful. So metta's a big thing. If we're seeing not the metta for someone and recognizing how good people are doing, they can see it in our eyes if we're not or genuine about what's going on. So that's a really big thing. One of my Vipassana sits, one of the last days, it was it was a profound experience for me. It was really interesting. It was probably my 5th or 6th sit. It was one of my last ones. And on the last day, after all this metta and going through everything, and we don't eat dinner, I was sitting on the balcony where we have lunches and they serve chai and so forth. And there was about 30 girls and I was talking to 2 girls who were sitting on the ground, I was sitting on a chair. 150 meters down, this other girl was sitting on the other side of where we were sitting. And I met her the first day of that sit, and she was telling me, "Oh, I'm not doing the course for me, I'm doing the course for my work. I'm a counsellor." And I said, "Oh, good luck." It's a strong course to just recognise for your work, but she did it. And when I saw her, I was thinking, I wonder how she thought of the course, like whether or not she got what she needed from her work, or whether or not that she went inwards and actually did the work. And so she's sitting over there, and I'm talking to these girls, and there's all these other girls talking, and when you haven't spoken for a long time, it's very loud. It's like loud birds chirping. It's like really crazy. But I wanted to know her experience, so I zoomed in. My brain just went, I want to know her experience, and I had zoomed into a conversation. I heard everything she went through and blocked everyone else out. And I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. I actually zoomed right in, heard, and at the time I didn't think anything of it. It felt natural. And I heard her saying, she went inwards, she went through a profound experience, she, did all these shifts, and she was, I remember thinking, oh good, she did the work, she didn't just sit there, it was all about work, she did the actual Vipassana. Good on her. She's gonna have changes in her life and all this stuff going through her head. Then one of the girls asked me something and it pulled me out of it. And I realised what I'd just done. And I was like, oh, I was just listening to someone's conversation that is not possible. I was just really, really bizarre. And this sort of feeling and controlment of the mind stays with you for a very long time after your sits, especially if you keep doing more and more and more. You just get stronger and stronger in this way, and you do practice at home to maintain them. I think everyone should do a sit just to experience it once. You don't have to keep going back if it's not your thing, but it's like amazing. Then you've got the pergolas, and we sit in like cells. So they're like little dark rooms, and you got a door and you close it behind you and it's black. So you just sit, and when you're an old student you can go in pergolas and you go really internal. Like I've had the biggest moments. It's like you need to see what comes to you. You don't ask for it. That's one big thing. If you crave something, like anything I'm talking about, it will never happen. It's like you have to just do the work and these things happen. If you crave something, you spend days trying to get to it and it doesn't happen. But if you just follow the technique, go inwards, do the Vipassana, what they're teaching, you can hear it in the cells as well, but then you've got time to do your own sits. And what it is like there's feelings in us that teach us how to react to things throughout our life. But when, like these sankharas can go through from life, not just this life. So sometimes you can get to a point where you kind of go, okay, I've gone through all this, and then it goes to another level, especially when you're in the cells. No one's distracting you, you can't hear sneezing, you can't hear door slamming. You're in this dark cell and you go really inwards. And then you can go into different channels and they pop up when you need it. So you get this feeling, and it's, we've all got these sort of little nudgy feelings that people can poke and they come up. And these are the feelings, and you kind of get shown, it's hard to describe why you have that. And then while you're in this bliss state, you kind of rationalize it again and you demolish it and it goes. You kind of understand why you react in that way. It's really hard to describe, but that happens in the cell. And also if you do long sits, longer than 10 days, or Siddhapada sit, there's a teacher that sits on top of the pergola, and they have to meditate a certain amount of time to be able to sit on the top. And the vibrations of that pergola sitting there is unbelievable. It's incredible. You go straight in. You just do. One of the strongest courses that I did in the Siddhapada course, it goes for only 8 days. I got in stronger than 10 days. I think that's why they cut it short. Because there's no new students, you go straight in because that you know what you're there for. When you're a new student, you kind of sit at the back and you're making a racket and you're kind of moving around, and it's different energy in the room. And the front ones are the old students, the medium sort of second or third sits are in the medium, and the back of the, we're all there. It kind of looks like, there's like stacks of pillows in the last row, people trying to get comfortable, and they think that that's going to help, but until you realize that you've actually got to explode them and stuff and get rid of them, and it's the only way you can do it, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. There's people that talk about these sort of things without going into too much of the course details, like Ram Dass. He loves psychedelic experiences. So he chose that journey, but he didn't like coming up and down, and he didn't also like being the passenger. So the passenger meaning like you can take something and it takes you there, but then you come back down because you're not in control. But actually being like the pilot, the actual explorer of the journey, the actual control of doing the journey yourself and getting there and staying there and actually controlling that yourself. You come out and you start to eat something, you could see, oh yeah, this is good sattvic food, this is maintaining my feeling. But then you eat something that's not, and you can feel it starting to go down straight away. It's incredible. So it's like wiping the slate clean. So instead of being like a passenger of going up and down, it's being the explorer and staying on your journey. And you get further and further. It's incredible. Yeah. I had also these experiences of like going in and seeing like our channels that we're learning about in Ayurveda. It was interesting because I just did a sit a couple of weeks ago, and that like because I'm new to all the these specific channels and all that sort of thing, I actually went in and followed these channels. And it was quite interesting because some of them were fidgeting, like a snake. We're learning this in Vata qualities, and some of them were really hot and sharp, and they were like in my jaw and behind my eyes and in the temples and stuff like this, and they're hot and sharp. And then there's like ones that I mentioned earlier, like the arteries. They're like, you become like water, and it's fluid. It's a bit more like kapha. So we become a bit more fluid in those channels. It's really incredible, and I think 5,000 years ago when Ayurveda, they were doing all this, they probably did all that and mapped out our bodies, as well as watching people decay in front of them to see what we are. But the energies, like there's drawings of this from back then. So it's quite interesting to tap into that sort of experience, learning it. So that was good. But Ayurveda, we've got this chant Om, and the Om sound, it happened when there was space, ether. And when that happened, it made movement in the space, and that created our air. And when the air moved, it created the friction, which created the heat. And then when the heat came, there was like light and spark, so that created like the fire. And then the fire created this steam and water sort of evaporating sensation. And then it solidified and created the earth. So Ayurveda is more than just medicine. It teaches you that the elements of the universe on the earth and all through us, plants, pets, everything is an element, and it's all created like all the same. Ayurveda had made 3 body types, to explain this. The Vata is the air in the space, and that is things that are light and fluid and moving. So if you take a flower, it's more like a jasmine. It's light and it climbs, and that's like a Vata flower. And they can also worry a lot and get a little fidgety moving around. Birds, bats, bees, all Vata animals. And then you got like the Pitta, it's more heating, more fiery, summer. So more like a medium built person, Labrador dog, the lion, the king of the jungle, the leader, going around. If someone's not doing their job, they'll roar. The Pitta's like strong, know what they're doing. More medium built, flower like a red rose, they're beautiful, but they come in the season and they've got their thorns. The Kapha is more of the larger sort of stockier built. So in the animals, I love sloths. They're slow and they're graceful. That's, you know, they've got smiles and they're just happy to be. So it's your typical Kapha, and you could see them in flowers. They'd be like a succulent. So they're like just there. The weather doesn't bother them. They just stay the same for 100 years. They're just there and happy, and they don't need to be pruned back or anything. They're just there. And that's like, yeah, a way of describing the doshas in a sort of way, and feeling everything in the Vipassana. It's just incredible, like to tap in that and to know. I didn't know that this was all like sisters in line when I was going through my journey. I didn't realise I was going to head into Ayurveda as a thing. I knew that I loved yoga and the meditation, and then the Ayurveda came, and it's all just built up, and realising that it's actually all the same thing. I just didn't know. But so that's quite profound moments for myself, discovering that, and I just love it all, because like all of everything I'm learning, it's very similar words and all that sort of thing, so it's really, really good to learn all that. The interesting part that I tapped into these last few Vipassanas after learning Ayurveda as well is that our teacher teaches us that 80% of diseases are caused from Vata imbalances, which is our mental states sort of causing a lot of diseases. So when you sit Vipassana, you're actually balancing out a lot of your Vata, which you can feel lighter when you leave. You feel more centered, more grounded, and you can take on the world. Whereas before you go in, there's always something going on, and you're always tired or something, and then you come out and you just reset, completely reset. Ayurveda talks about this, resetting our, they're like our channels in our body, our chakras. They teach us that we have to reset ourselves in order to heal. And I feel like when you're doing Vipassana, 100% you're resetting the Vata, because you're not thinking. So these days, Vata out of dosha is pretty much in everyone. Our phone is so stimulating. We see the slides come up and down, and we're exposed to something funny, something serious, something traumatic, something, something fearful, something, constantly within a minute. We could see so many stories in 1 second, like just our phones and people talking, and lots more people we know, and all different work. So our Vata is spinning, our mind is too fast, people are less sleeping, all that sort of thing. So when you do Vipassana, you're focusing on that breath, and if you don't, it's painful. So you kind of, the way to sit for the hour is actually not to think of anything, and you focus on the breath, and you can actually sit in, the only pains that are going to come up are deeps and karas, and they're going to come out, and they will come out. But if you're focused, you don't have these pains, and when you start to notice in your Vipassana sit and you're thinking, about things, so the flashcards that I was telling you about, or days that come through, that's when the pain happens and they come out, and then you want to like move, get out of your position, and then you have a hard time with yourself because you're like, no, I'm meant to sit for an hour without moving. So not thinking actually allows you to sit, right? So it's a very hard job. It sounds easy just to focus on your breath and not think, but after what we've been exposed to, it's a tough one. Yeah, and then the pitta, I think, pittas do like goal lists and to do things, and they always have something lined up. They've got to be doing something else and got to be doing something else. When you're Vipassana, you're sitting down for 10 days and you're focusing on your breath, you're doing nothing. So your pitta is beautiful. Like you're in more of in the moment state for the first time in a long time. You're not thinking about what you're going to do at work the next day. You're not thinking about what you need to do with the children the next day or anything like that. So your pitta comes really in line. It's really beautiful. No list, just follow the program. The kapha becomes out of dosha because we don't eat dinner. And we also don't snack. So just having breakfast and lunch, I notice, because I am predominantly kapha, that I do, it's not like you're losing a lot of weight, you become less of the sponginess of yourself. So you do lose weight, I shouldn't say that, you do lose weight, but become more, look less kapha, you less swollen and inflamed. I think because kapha's in dosha can get away with just eating 2 meals anyway naturally, but when we're out of dosha we do need the 3 meals. Because we need to, work on things on ourselves. But when we're in health, we can eat 2 meals. And it's the only dosha that can do it. And when you're at Vipassana and not eating for 10 days, no dinner, you just feel so good. You don't feel like a sloth. You can move and you can go for a run. And it's great. It really, really is. So I've noticed that in correlation with Vipassana Ayurveda, with the doshas and all that sort of thing. Yeah, there's so much I can talk about. But maybe has anyone sat at Vipassana in the room? Yeah? Yeah. Does anyone want to share an experience that they've gone through?
I just noticed that, I just thought it was interesting when you were talking about the layers of the onion going in.
Yeah.
Because for me, I knew exactly what you were talking about, but I wasn't going in this way, I was going down.
Oh.
So I felt like I was going down further and further and further into like rooms, as if there was a skyscraper.
Yeah.
That was not in the sky but underground. And each day and each sitting, you just get to levels lower, deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
So I just understood that.
Yeah, awesome. That's cool. Does anyone else want to share something? Yeah.
So I had an amazing Vipassana experience a long time ago in Sri Lanka, and I just learned just like what you were saying, so much about myself. But one of the things I learned in meditation, because I'd been doing meditation, but I didn't realize that I would constantly be getting angry at my thoughts, and I just realized that I would be battling them, why are you here? I'm not supposed to be having this thought right now. And I kept pushing them away, and the teacher, because we'd have pockets where we could ask questions to the teacher.
Yeah.
And the Buddhist monk was I said, oh, this is what's happening. He's like, what? You must do that in life. And he just taught me this technique of actually just inviting the thoughts. And it's just made a major shift to me in life, but really in meditation, because he just taught me this technique of letting, setting the table for them and just letting them come in and have a seat at the table, and even offering them a drink and just saying, I'm going to get back to you later, but right now I'm here and I'm doing this and I'm focusing on my breath. And it was just like this major sort of shift for me, and I just didn't realize how much I sort of, you know, did that in my mind. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for that share. Does anyone else have a share?
So I actually haven't done a proper Vipassana sit, but because of Beck, I have done there's an online version. I don't know if anyone knows of Yogi Lab, but yeah. And even so, Yogi Lab, it's something that you can do online, and there's all different types that you can do, and it can incorporate if you need your work in life, and that was perfect for me because I still needed to work, but I really wanted, Beck, hanging out with her, you just get so inspired to do Vipassana. So I did it in January only recently, and I had my eczema was out of control, and I thought my Vata was okay, but obviously the Vata was blowing the fire, and so that's why my eczema was still, out of balance. And that experience, even at home, I really recommend, if you can't get to Blackheath, to look up Yogi Lab and do this, because after a few, I had things come up as well around my family, memories and emotions and relationships with people, and understanding my role with those people, and then that took me a back seat and was able to forgive them but also myself, and understand how I can also, if I heal, then how I can be better in that relationship, particularly my mother. But what I found after doing it is that I've maintained my practice, so I do an hour every morning and then half an hour of an evening, and that's been really beautiful for me, for somebody who has had Vata out of dosha for a very long time. And it's helped my eczema, although it's a little bit out at the moment for various reasons. But after the 10 days, my eczema was pretty much gone, which is insane for something that I had had for 2 years. And then second to that was, I realized I'd gone into pratyahara, which is withdrawal of the senses. And before that, I was always listening to music or feeling like I needed some sort of sound, or I was somebody who was really a loud person and I'd be high-pitched. And after that, I realized I was just conserving my energy now. I wanted to remain in balance, and that peace, that inner peace that I've had since that time. It's only been 2.5 months, but I still have that peace. And that withdrawal of the senses, I suddenly listen to music now, not because I don't want to, in the sense I enjoy music, but I don't need to. I love the silence. I love the peace. And somebody who I am Pitta dominant, so I've definitely been fire. Not anymore. I don't know. There's still that desire to achieve in life, but you just go about it in a much more calm and bliss way, rather than feeling like you need to dig deep. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. So thank you, Beck. And get on to Yogi Lab. Thanks, Joe. Yes, of course.
I've never experienced Vipassana, but already hearing from you and understand it's a silent meditation for the 10 days, right? So how do you cope with it when you come back to your real world? We like to talk, we like to chat and friends and family. How do you cope with that one?
Well, it's a good question, but they prepare you for it. So the last day of the meta day, we actually start talking that night. So we talk to each other. So we talk quietly, but you prepare for the day. It is a little bit of a transition, but it's actually quite easier than what you think, because we've been talking all our life. So you just go back into it. You just don't have this flip of the tummy or respond like you used to. It's just this calmness about yourself, especially after you first see it. It's just incredible. I think it's worth going through. I wouldn't be frightened of that coming back into it's the transition's quite good. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's not. It takes a couple of days. I think for me personally, it's a little bit overwhelming. Like noises seem louder, and people talking seems sort of more irritating. Like until you can sort of get into that's because you're just so sensitive.
Yeah. I don't find it too challenging. There's just those things that you kind of see it and then you just know you're gonna move back into the world, how it is.
Yeah, but you definitely have stress.
Yes,
I don't know
definitely.
that. Things happen with me all the time, like at work and stuff like that, and I saw that I don't even want to it. It's like there's just no feeling, there's no feeling around. You just see it for what it is, and it just is what it is.
And I noticed that a lot in the hall as well. I remember the first time I did my sit, I would notice every single sneeze, every single door slamming, every single walking out, and I'd be like, how are you meant to meditate in all this noise? I was so agitated by it. But like the last few times I went back, I didn't even notice it. You know, and you just know how far, like from that first person that walked into the doors of Vipassana to the person that is walking in now, you're not there anymore. Like you're there in the present, you can hear it, but you do not react. You can hear it, but it doesn't penetrate you. It's like things can happen, but they don't penetrate me anymore. It's fantastic to work on. Yeah, it's really, really good. Yeah, of course.
Are there any side effects of going into such trance meditation for the people who are beginning their practice? Any like side effects?
Side effects of the practice?
Yes. Like,
No.
Extreme, because you just suddenly get connected to yourself, kind of energy you're not prepared to get, acquainted with. And
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of any instances like that?
Everyone that leaves is so relieved and so happy that they've done it.
Okay.
But while you're in there, that's another story. You're going to go through things a lot, but that's a part of it. And I think if you know you're going to go into something like that, you know that that's going to kind of happen. You meet yourself, that's not so pleasant sometimes, because you kind of feel like sometimes you see yourself a certain way and then you kind of mean everything, you create your life how you want to be, telling people they have to be like this, they have to change, they have to, and then you realise when you're in there that that's not the case. It's you just got to see it a different way. No one should change. I don't know, there's all these scenarios that happen and they come up during, but after, you're so grateful you went through it. Everyone comes out cloud nine and just euphoric and want to take on the world. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Just going to ask something.
Yeah.
You told the story of how you tapped into this other girl's conversation. Now, that's something that you can tap into any time? Was it just the circumstance? Or?
It was that one circumstance. I have done similar things during the course, but sometimes when I do kirtan, I can also, kirtan's like a mantras where you sing for a couple of hours on a Saturday night or Thursday night, and you can sometimes, I think because I've done so many Vipassanas, I can tap into that. I don't think you can just sort of start doing kirtan and get that experience. I think the combination though, sometimes I've been in kirtan and I've tapped into like my operations that I do, and I've had to work up for like 10 days of not speaking and not eating just to get there, but I'll go to kirtan and it happens. It's interesting. So there is, I think there's parts of our brain that we don't really use, but when we're meditating, we use a lot more. Yeah, so that's how those things happen. They're quite good, and when they happen in there, they're nice to happen. Yeah, of course.
I was just going to share that both my parents did Vipassana quite a few times when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that they kind of were just like that quick body scanning that my mum used to take me through before I went to bed, and I had no idea it was Vipassana. And they were very peaceful because of it. So I think I was lucky because I was quite a hyperactive child. Didn't really appreciate it until I was an adult. But I want to do it one day. I love talking a lot though.
part. Not talking's the easy part.
But it did remind me of some Buddhist teachings that I'd done as well that had like dealt with a lot of past issues as well. So I think there's a lot of similarities. So yeah, I think that was really beautiful hearing everything that you shared. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to have a quick question. Like, what is the teaching, like Vipassana's teaching, like for daily awareness? Like, is it to like obviously you have the Ayurveda, the food, and your daily meditation, but like, and it's different for you as an experienced person. But for a new person, what might they say in your experience?
This is interesting. It's a very interesting question. So I guess it's creating awareness. You, like you're saying, so Vipassana in the teachings, they just say meditate for an hour in the morning, meditate at the night, right? The rest does it for itself. If you are doing that, something happens. You see things how they are. Someone drop a rubbish on the ground in front of you, pick it up, disappear. You see someone eat gold crossing, you know, you just notice things. When you're not doing that, you're like, I've got to go here, I've got to go there, I've got no time for anyone. It's just very different. Like you can still do the amount of things that people, in fact I'm doing more because I'm not exhausted. When you think a lot, you're exhausted. So when you meditate, the awareness is there. It's interesting. My awareness has gotten stronger and stronger, and the last few sits I've come out and I'm like, I want to save the world. I'm in my euphoric state. I want to heal the world. We're all going to do Vipassana. We're all going to... No, reality's there. I've got a mortgage, had a business. I've got, friends that rely on me, family, etc., all that stuff. Try to just switch. But you can create this. I look at it like a soup, and in my life I was putting in these ingredients, right? And it created the life that I wanted to live. And I was happy with that. But when I've been doing these awarenesses, I have to change now the ingredients. Because I just can't come out thinking for a whole day that I'm going to change the world, and then the next minute, I've got bills to pay, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So what I did change was the ingredients in my soup. So I know my soup eventually is going to be this new transformation. So I started this path, starting at Ayurveda, and now talks like this. Maybe someone might pick up on something, changing a movement. And that's all you can do. You can only work on yourself and whoever you're around, like Jay was experiencing, like my family, everyone that you're around, they just start to see what you're saying and it just spreads. So I think that's the only thing we can do. But meditating every day is,
So I had a friend who, she didn't have any background in meditation or anything at all, and she went to the Clarke Centre. She only lasted day 7 and she had to go through therapy after. And I think the important thing is that you have to actually push through that pain and finish the program, right? Because she didn't make it all the way in. Maybe she didn't have the understanding that you just got to push beyond those really hard times. So.
I know a few people that haven't made it either.
Yeah.
Day 7.
Dun,
dun, dun, dun. I still do it. I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what am I doing this for? You sort of rip your legs off. Seriously, day 7 is the hardest day. Everyone leaves day 7.
See?
It's not just her.
Yeah.
But it's a shame she didn't stay. What's on day 8 is the change in life experience, and that's why you stay. It's the hardest day. When you reach day 7 is the hardest day. You've got to do the work. And then you have a sleep and you wake up and you're just doing it. It's like this, anything. If you, so she would have tapped into this, almost starting an operation and left. Yeah, she would need someone to talk to. Yeah. Yeah, because that's, She would have worked on something though.
Yeah, oh, she did. She said, I mean, it really got to when she
Yeah.
had to go to just from sitting so long and just, you know, like peeling the onion, as you said, just
Yeah.
those rude things that you push down. I
Yeah.
think they all came to the surface. It was too much for her.
I was scraping day 1, day 2, day 3 on my first day just to know because you lose track of time when you're in the moment. And day 7, it was this scratch.
Yeah.
It was like day 7. I made it. It's like, oh my gosh. So if anyone does do it, just it doesn't happen to everyone. It might even happen to you, but you get this like you just don't want to be there, and yeah. These voices in your head are really strong as well. I do want to share this other little tiny story. I'll be quick. It's quite fascinating because when you're doing these things and you're at the point where you want to leave, it's excruciating. And you think you're going to be like that forever. You're convinced that you're going to be like that, and you've made yourself like that through sitting on the ground and focusing on your nostrils for 10 days. And you get to this point where you think you're going to be like that forever. Now, one of my thoughts were terrible. Like, it said to me clearly, because back in the early days of my life, it was a thing that King's Cross sold drugs. And this voice in my head came and said, go to King's Cross now and go get some drugs and put yourself out of misery. I wasn't taking drugs. I was in meditation. And I believed the voice. I started packing up and I was going to catch a train to King's Cross. I'm so glad I didn't. I went, who is this? What is this voice? It's not me. And that's another thing that just comes up. We hear these voices. They're actually not from us. These voices are like either tests or from other people that you've been, maybe TV or something going on in your family or something. Someone's told you all your life, you like this, you like that. This voice comes up and it's so strong. And you just kind of have to be strong and say, well, I'm not reacting to that. Like, yeah, that would be nice, take something to get rid of this straight away, but like, no, it's not the work. And the work is hard and it's real. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's the best thing I've ever done. If I hadn't gone for my first sit and made it through, I wouldn't have gone on my journey the way that I have, and I wouldn't trade that in for the world just to sit there for another day. It's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Does anyone else have any? Yeah?
So what is the schematics? How does it work? How many hours do you sit in silence?
So you're actually there for 12 days. They say it's a 10-day retreat. You're in silence for 10 days. We sit for 12 hours a day of meditation. The whole retreat is 114 because you also have an introduction night and you also have closing. So it all adds up to quite a number of meditations. Oh, okay, so the schedule?
Yes.
You wake up at 4 a.m, there's a dom, and you're meant to be in the temple by 4:30. 4:30 to 6 a.m, 6:30, you are meditating for 2 hours. Then we go to breakfast. So 6:30 to 8:30, we have a 2-hour break and have breakfast. It's beautiful.
In that time period.
No.
Throughout, that's this.
Yeah, you're meant to go inside and you're also meant to sort of gaze to the floor and you're meant to respect each other's boundaries. So you can't just go up to someone and move them or...
So it's rule discipline involved.
Yeah. Actually, I found it quite good. One sit I did was when we freshly went into coronavirus and they had all these new rules and it was quite good because when I came out, I was doing them without even thinking of it. So you touch things with your elbows, you You know, step back when you see someone. We had this whole rundown. It was quite interesting. Yeah. But like to be taught how to collect your food mindfully while others are around you. Like the first day, you see everyone trying to get their food, but then by the end of the retreat, we're all just sitting back, like waiting to, you know, so you can get your food. It's a very different energy from the first day to the last day. It's really good. So you sit for 2-hour meditation in the morning at the temple. You go to breakfast for 2 hours. You might, you know, eat, go for a bushwalk, and then you sit again for 2 hours. And that might be the guided meditation for that day. So 1 hour of that, we get a toilet break, and then another hour of that. And there's a time where the teacher calls our name one up at a time, and you kind of sit in front of them, and they ask you if you have your equilibrium or can you focus on your breath. Because then if you can't, they can help you. That happens. And then there's another 2-hour meditation. Then you get 2 hours lunch. So you can go for another bushwalk, eat, and then 2 more hours, then a tea break. So we kind of lay around on the grass and have herbal tea. And then in the evening there's a discourse. So it's the teachings of the art of life. It's by Clarke. He's quite a character. He's funny. And it's
talking to you and you're listening.
yeah, it's a projector screen of Clarke from his actual teachings, and it's done on like day 1, day 2, up to day 10. And so you get this whole philosophy of the art of living, which is basically Buddhist living. He's funny, he's engaging, and I think because you're not talking to anyone and stuff, it's really like how I was describing those veins in the brain, and so you're weak in that way and you get stronger in this way, and then when you leave you're kind of thinking about how, and they're just normal things. I resonate with them very strongly. Just be kind to people, and you know, don't kill people, and you know, be wise with your toxins that you take and all that sort of stuff. That's all it is, but it's done in a certain way that's amazing and beautiful. So you can't do going first Vipassana online, but you can do the Yogi Lab.
Yeah, is that not, that's not the same?
It is, and I find it quite good and modern, because right now there's a lot of Vata out. I noticed when I went in the first time it was a lot different to how it is now, and I find Yogi Lab, they sort of talk about the experiences like how I'm talking now, whereas in Vipassana you don't get that. You just, this is the meditation, that's it, and he chants for you, and he describes it, and the work happens. And what Yogi Lab does is describe what happens, and then but Vipassana, like he doesn't do that, and he just lets you go on the journey. But the Yogi Lab is really good because you can work or have children, because there's a morning and a night course. You don't actually have to sit all day. You can do 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours at night, and that's including the discourses. So it's like you're still doing about 6 hours meditation, isn't it? Yeah, a day. That's still a lot. Yeah. And in the 10 days you do go places with it. Yeah, but when you're doing 114, you go places.
That's scary, I suppose, for a lot of people, because, you know, like you said, you go to a dark room and, you know, dark.
The first time you don't do that. Yeah, the first time you don't go to the cell. It's,
Would you say that one should probably be in balance before you would go into a meditation like this?
I don't think anyone is, so
because someone who's seriously imbalanced could go in there, like, you know, and someone's saying, all these thoughts can come up that are hard to deal with and hard to
You know what?
get through.
No, I think my experience is everything that's happened to me through Vipassana happened when I was ready to hear it. Your body doesn't come up with things when you're not ready. You're ready to hear what that comes up. Yeah. It's you doing it, no one else. Yeah. It just comes naturally, and you just do what they say, and you don't crave what, you know, you can't go in and go, I'm going to work on this. It's never going to happen. It just will never pop up. For some reason, You know, he worked out exactly what to do to let it happen quicker than what he did over like his lifetime. So, yeah, 10-day course is pretty good.
You said to just meditate every day. So you said before, you know, if you want to get into a regular practice or something, you know, still practice, as you said, in the morning and the evening, or
Yes.
have a regular meditation practice.
Yes.
So obviously though, this particular practice is all around focusing on the breath.
Yes.
So what's your perspective on, because there's so many other styles, like you can do mantras, you can do guided, you can do systems, there's so many other meditations that you can do. What makes this one different to the rest?
Well, I know how far this one can go in deep, and I think it just pulls you out of suffering. It does. You're not chasing anything anymore, and it just works. I think other techniques will work as well, but probably for some reason I feel like they're not going to go in as deeper. I could be wrong because I've done only Vipassana and Kirtan.
It makes a lot of sense, sorry. It does make a lot of sense because you're kind of wiping down the slates.
Yeah.
And then feeding it with
With good energy rather than people could be going to massages or yoga classes or something to distract themselves so they don't hear themselves. Whereas in Vipassana, sitting around not doing anything and listening to yourself, and you're like, you're faced with it.
You can't escape it.
You can't escape it. You deal with it and you move on. Yeah. And it eradicates the problem. Go straight to the point. Yeah. Cool.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I do.
Yeah.
So Vipassana is a 10-day course. Would you recommend any preparation or doing a 1-day course before that, or just meditating every day, or just go straight into it?
I think you can go straight into it. I think thinking about it too much is what is going to cause the complication. I think you just go in there and you just sit and you breathe and you do what they say, and your body just naturally does its work and what you're ready for. I think if you start to go, I'm going to go sit for 10 days and everyone's going to be sitting for an hour, I better start practicing and all that sort of thing, it's going to take you away from the authenticity of the practice. The authenticity of the practice is to get out of suffering. So yeah, you can practice meditation if it's like a genuine, you're going to practice for yourself, but I wouldn't be trying to do it so you look like you know what you're doing or something like that. It just, just be more authentic and going in. I think they do have rules. They also ask you when you're applying to go to Vipassana. So if you got something like schizophrenia or something like that, they might call you up on your application and ask what that's about before they allow you in. So they do go through things thoroughly as well. It's not just like they're just going to let anyone in. It's actually quite difficult to get into as well. But that's not saying that they only let people in that don't have mental issues, because that's why everyone goes. It's like you go in a mad mess and you come out beautiful. That's what happens. And each time it's a different thing that you go through. It's incredible.
Spa for the inside.
Yes. Okay. So, well, I just went down to the beach and got this jar of water because I just wanted to explain a visual of the sand going into the water, and this is us at work and our mind looking at the phone, and then we kind of sleep and it sort of goes down a little bit, but we're dreaming, and then we kind of go on a holiday and it starts to kind of like go down a little bit as well. But then even on your holiday you start to like eat bad food and drink alcohol, so then it goes back up and all that sort of thing. But what Vipassana does is like you get there and you start Anapana and it starts going down, and day by day they fall down, and you're not eating anything but sattvic food when you're there, and just the sand goes all the way down to the bottom, and your mind is just completely clear. Like, for the first time I felt my mind clear was so relieving, I can't tell you. And just to not have anything buzzing around in my mind or a thought is just so beautiful. It does take 114 hours to get there, but it is so worth it. And the decisions you make, even the first 2 weeks or month, will be so much better decisions than what if you hadn't done the course, you know, all that sort of thing. So it's a relief, you know, as well as learning lifestyle and because you wipe it clean, you clean slate again. Like I was saying, with the food or the alcohol or anything that you do after it, or even telling a lie, you can notice the vibration dipping back down. Like, you know, it's just incredible where we put ourselves. So you go in, you deal with all your stuff, come out clean, and then each time it gets longer and longer that you feel better and better, and it's just, yeah, it's a really good place to be in. Does anyone else want to add anything, or?
You also lose weight.
You lose weight, yes.
You're gonna make it past day 7.
You got to make it past 7.
I guess I've just got a question on, is there like a waiting list or sign up? How's all that stuff work? Maybe you're going to get to that.
Yeah, to sign up is quite difficult, but if you follow the website, it's quite simple. They tell you a time and a date to book the date you want to be booked in. If you kind of log on an hour late, you might miss that spot. So everyone that wants to sit that sit is online at that time, ready to book. So what it is they have the year down of the courses, and they book, say, about 3 or 4 months ahead, and they have 3 courses released to apply for. And they're done at certain times, and you go online and you apply, and then they ask all these questions, and they might get back to you through an email, and you just answer them, and then they'll tell you you have been accepted. Sometimes, a lot of the times now, you can't be accepted because of the corona rules. They've got less people that they can sit together, and it's so popular now. It's extremely popular. They've made another centre up in New South Wales, so there's another one if you can't get into the mountains. But they're actually all over the world now, like completely all over the world. New Zealand's beautiful apparently, and Tasmania. So you can just fly somewhere else if you're getting somewhere else. They're smaller, easier to get into. But the couple that are here, they're completely booked out all the time. So you have to apply on that hour, on that day, and you'll get in. But if you're like an hour or two, unfortunately you'll be a waiting list or something. And I've been on a waiting list and I got in, so don't think that doesn't happen either, because a third of the people, I've also served there and have been on the other end as a manager, and what happens is a lot of people cancel because of just, it's a hard thing to take 10 days out from a family or work. So people leading up do cancel, and then so if you're in the waiting list, you might get in.
There's always the option of online too.
Oh, and Yogi Lab.
Yeah.
You could do the Yogi Lab online if you don't get in and you want to do it quite soon. And they're done every month online. Day 11th of every month to 22nd, 23rd. Yeah. And that's Yogi Lab. But it's not the same.
I prefer it.
You prefer it?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. What do you prefer about it?
I like being comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like
no futons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't like the showers there.
Yeah.
I like my shower.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's all a part of the experience. When you go through something like this, it also teaches us and shows us where we're agitated. So, yeah, like sharing, you know, showers and sleeping in dorms and all that sort of thing. It just, you know, you hear people sneezing and snoring and
sniffers up the back.
yeah. Sinus problems and well, everything, and gas problems, and yeah. But when you're in your own comfort at home, yes, it's nicer. It's like the cell. You're going deeper and all that sort of thing because you're comfortable. But it's also nice to teach you the other side of uncomfortable, because when you're in an uncomfortable situation in real life, you're not going to be looking like a little spoiled 10-year-old trying to get their way. It's hard to describe that. Like when you're dealt with an uncomfortable situation, you can be polite and you can sit and wait and all that thing, instead of going, no, it's my turn, and you know, I was there first, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that comfort thing can teach you all these other things, and I really enjoy that about Vipassana, because I'm all about comfort, you know. But it teaches you, yeah, that. So that's good too. Yeah. I might seal the night with 3 ums if that's okay. Yeah, everyone's hungry. So if everyone wants to sit up tall, you can breathe in and breathe out. One nice deep breath in.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome. Are you happy? Yeah.
You look happy?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoyed that. It was very convincing. I feel like going now, so if Ojas closes for 10 days, you know where we are. But no, we'll have to probably postpone that at some point. But yeah, it was a very interesting talk.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, you were mentioning Kirtan. We have our Kirtan event coming this Saturday. I've just been informed that the people that were going to run it are unfortunately unwell, but it's still going to go ahead with the Kirtan singer we had last time, Maxi G.
Oh, cool.
So if anyone's booked for that, or if anyone would like to book for that, that's this Saturday, 6 p.m. So it'll be like a 2-hour sort of Kirtan meditation, sound healing, and also a buffet dinner. So there's a post on the door and on the website. I'm interested in that. And also Rebecca will be back next week with Jade, who's also here, and 2 of the other of their group. They're going to be talking about testing the pulse, how you can diagnose your body type and any sort of imbalances by testing the pulse. That'll be next Tuesday, so please come for that. And now we're going to have a dinner. Anyone wants to stay for dinner, we do a dinner thali, so we can we'll rearrange this back into a restaurant, and you can take a seat and just be patient. We'll come around and serve the thali to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.